Good evening, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about how to boost the network IQ, and next few minutes, of course. So if you look at the promises by NFV and the virtualization, what is expected out of virtualization, there are three main things. Number one is reducing the CapEx, reducing the OpEx, and generating revenues by introducing the new services faster we can, right? So these are all the three promises done by the virtualization. Now, in order to make this happen, today's network has to evolve in its agility and speed, right? And it is able to provide all the services on demand. This is the key thing to make it successful, right? The virtualization successful. So on demand, like I said, this is the key thing to make it successful. On demand, everything, starting from the flows, taking the backups and restoring all the way to the functions, features, and providing all these things in a scale that is demanded on that particular instance without compromising the quality and the performance of the whole system that we are putting together. So on demand is going to play a huge, most important role in making this NFV promises successful. So in order to do this, you need to have a greater flexibility and the configurability of the different blocks in the NFV ecosystem to make this happen. And the automation is going to play a key role. Orchestration is going to play a key role, right? And now if you, let's step in for a minute to kind of understand and imagine a world where human and machines are going to be together, right? And going to coexist. Think about, at least from my view, thinking about driving a car next to a car which has no driver is kind of scary to me, right? So that's what we need to overcome over the period of time. And the industry has to come together to build a smarter network that is able to solve this problem, right? That's the most important thing. Now, if you look at talking from the intelligence point of view, we need, the world is becoming smarter, right? The different technologies such as NFV, SDN, 5G, IoT, you name it, AI, AR, and different flavors of IoT, smart meters, and everything is going to make this world smarter. And you need a smarter infrastructure to cater these new needs, the new demands from the customers, that the way that they are going to use the applications that are out there, and new applications that's going to be deployed, right? So we must have the smarter infrastructure to cater this smarter world. So how do you build this smarter infrastructure? What does it take to build this smarter infrastructure? Answer is very simple. You need to build intelligence in your network to make your infrastructure smarter. So talking about intelligence, you need to have a network that is high in its IQ, right? So let's talk about what is IQ for an instance. So how do you define the IQ? It's the measure of an intelligence, right? So although my picture is not here, I'm pretty sure you would recognize most of the people in this picture, right? So these are the top 10 IQs that was ever recorded in the history, right? And there was a lot of studies. I mean, is it innate, meaning comes from the birth, or is it developed over the period of time, right? The research kind of concluded that it's the combination of both. So that's, if you try to map that to the network, how about the high IQ networks? It's the same story. Today, our networks does have a lot of intelligence in it, right? If not a lot to make it happen what NFV promises, but it does have some intelligence in the network. And we need to develop and evolve and bring in more intelligence into this existing intelligence to make and realize the dreams and the promises made by NFV. So that's the key thing. Now, what does it mean, right? We need to develop intelligence, that's pretty sure. What are we going to do with that intelligence? I mean, that intelligence must have to help you to self-learn, self-optimize, and self-heal. And how do you do that? There are two key components that you must understand. The first thing is the network should have a greater picture and understand the 360-degree visibility of the network in its current state as it has been providing services to the end users. Why you need to know this? Because only if you know that, you can create an actionable insights, right? Actionable events out of that, and you can do something with that event. And you can use those events and you can orchestrate and automate to build a network that is zero touch. A lot of previous speakers talked about zero touch and closed loop, and that's what you need to have. And it's not going to happen overnight. And there's a process. It's going to take time. And there's a path to achieve that, right? So we have been working with a lot of our customers, and we are partners of a lot of ecosystems and things like that. And based on our experience, we kind of put that into three main phases to build a smarter network, high IQ network from the path of path to NFV perspective. The first one is virtualization. So this phase is going to enable you, the service providers, to reduce the CapEx, right? By moving from the proprietary hardware to the commercial off-the-shelf hardware and porting the software on top of commercial off-the-shelf hardware. It's going to help you to reduce the CapEx. And now the next phase is where you're going to actually start reducing the OpEx, which is where you spend a lot of money compared to the CapEx, right? So here what you have to do is you should be able to automate to an extent where you are able to bring the services, onboard the services, and able to activate the services and operate services seamlessly. So that's something that you must do to reduce the OpEx. And finally, the ultimate thing is the revenue generation. So here is where you would adopt DevOps, which is new for most of the people, right? DevOps is nothing but bringing development and operations together, by which you are able to better manage, automate, and orchestrate the network, right? So that by adopting DevOps, you will be able to bring the services faster to the market and able to deliver the services quicker and make revenue generation, right? So that's what it is. So now, we are not the only one talking about this, right? And in order to do this, we know in order to build a smarter network, you must build a lot of intelligence inside that network. And we are not the only one who's talking about it. We saw the early speakers from the morning, everyone were talking about analytics, right? Because that's the one which is going to give you 360-degree visibility and then actionable data, pulling the data from the different sources and converting that into an information and provide the feed to the orchestration to kind of build a zero-touch network, right? So it's all about understanding the assets in the network topology and bringing all these different data that are available in the networks and crunching those data and making sure that effectively using those data and turning that into an intelligence by which you can manage the network, orchestrate and automate the network build a network that is of high IQ, right? High IQ networks. And analytics is going to play a huge and very important role to build the high IQ networks. And from that point of view, good enough network testing and data analytic isn't just good enough anymore. So just having the visualization of the analytic engine is of no use anymore. Just doing some testing and making some reports pass and fail and just putting it into some folder and moving on to the next step is not good anymore. You need more to do to make that happen, right? And so what do I mean by doing more to make it happen? So obviously there's a lot of things that are happening today in silos. We need to break that silos, and all the parties involved have to work together, because some block provided by one vendor and the data that you get from that can be used to improve on another block provided by another vendor. And if you are able to cross-pollinate and take advantage of the intelligence that are available from the different vendors, you can eventually put together all these blocks and make a bigger block which is high in IQ, right? So that's all about it, right? So it should not be anymore, okay, I worked with test vendors, I worked with OSS, BSS vendors, I worked with VNF vendors, VEPC vendors, VIMS vendors. It's not anymore like that. You have to bring all of them together, understand the different intelligence that everyone is providing, cross-pollinate those intelligence, and build a network that is really high in IQ. That's the way it should happen. And it's the industry that have to work together to make this whole thing happen. So now, next few slides, what I'm going to explain is how, from the testing point of view, right, we can improve the IQ of your networks. So that's what I'm going to focus on right now. So there's 4 things that I'm going to discuss. If you think about it, any operator, before they deploy, let's say a VEPC or VIMS, what do? They basically bring different vendors into their lab and start qualifying the different equipments and try to find the best fit of different equipments that they can use to develop and deliver the infrastructure and services. That's what they do at the first step in the life cycle. So the focus will be qualifying and making sure it's working with other networks, other devices, other blocks of the NFV, working together, and finally understanding the ceiling, how much it can deliver, and how do I build the network, and how do I size the network, and so on. Normally today what happens is, the lab and production is like two different departments, right? So whatever they test in the lab, and they look at the reports and then just keep it. But why not use those reports? Why not use those as a reference data for troubleshooting for the problems that happens in the live network? Something to think about. So you have a reference data, you are building a network slice for an enterprise, and you have a reference data, right? And now you made that network slice live for that enterprise, and you are collecting some live data. Now if you see some problems are there, why don't you kind of use this as a reference and increase your IQ by troubleshooting and finding the root cause in real time, right? So you need to start thinking a little differently from the way that the legacy networks are operated. So that's the first step. And then here, because it's the field early validation, real time, to an extent it is applicable, but the real time it becomes more critical when you move from the lab to the live. And in the DevOps world, it's called as from the stage to the production. Okay, and when you are moving from state to the production, the real time becomes so very critical. And why? Because it's very important that you find the problem within nanoseconds or milliseconds to recover, right? You cannot just wait for like 5 minutes and then recover. I mean, the subscriber experience is going to be very bad, right? So it has to happen in real time, if possible, near real time, worst case. And in order to do that, as a service provider, you need to have lots of intelligence. So the story starts like this, right? The first thing that you need to understand is the network topology and the assets that you have, both physical and virtual. And the virtual asset dynamically understanding and drawing a picture is going to be very tough, but you need to do this because you need to have this intelligence dynamically to understand your network topology and assets. Once you know that, right, the next step is you need to understand how the network slice is built. I mean, you can understand that by reading the different catalogs from the Mano, and you can understand why and for what reason the network slice is built. So now you know the assets, and the second thing is the network slice and the details of the service chain and the VNFs inside the service chain, Now you have the intelligence of these two things. Now with these two intelligence, what you can do is you can automatically create the service assurance tests, right? There are two types of things that you can do service assure your network. One thing is the active service assurance, where with this intelligence that you have, you are going to generate a synthetic data, right, periodically to verify the SLAs and make sure that the networks are running and proactively find the problems before it actually can happen with the customers, right? So that's active service assurance. It's mostly pushing the data in real time and making sure the SLAs are met and finding the problems in real time and able to send the data so the closed loop automation can be done. So that's active testing, and it's very, very important, active service assurance. And the second thing is pulling data from the live network. It is not that real time, but it does have some significance, right? So you can pull the data along with the active and passive, along with the reference data you have, and plus the assets knowledge that you have and the network slice knowledge that you have, having all these intelligence and bringing all these things together, you can react in real time to make things happen and automate and orchestrate, right? So that's basically a live and injected traffic monitoring. So you started with your early lab testing, and then you know the assets. Now you are able to service assure in the live network. Now after that, what happens? All these are different data sources that you have. Test data that you have from the lab and from the live. Now what are you going to do with the data? You have to convert the data into an information. You should be able to crunch the data, convert into an information, convert into an actionable insights, actionable data that can be fed into the next level, orchestration level, to realize the zero-touch automation, closed-loop automation. So the analytics part becomes very important. But if you look at the analytics part, it's not just some kind of a data which displays the historical stuff, and no, that's not enough anymore, right? So you need to have different perspective of data. You need to look at from the different perspective. You have to look at from the customer perspective, subscriber perspective, and you have to look at from the network perspective, and you have to look at from the service perspective, because all these three perspectives will give you the different views, and you should be able to bring all these things together and make your business decisions, make your network decisions, what you need to do. In case of some failures, recover the network in real time. And subscribers are not happy because of the business reasons, change your business decisions to make them happy, right? So whatever it is, but you have to have these 3 different views, which we at EXFO call it as 3-dimensional view, right? So the analytic data is not just about some data that you're getting, but you should get the data from all these 3 perspectives to make this whole thing work, okay? And finally, so we started with the lab, we had a good understanding on the asset, we understood the architecture of the network slice, and we were able to assure active and passive, and we were able to do the analytics of this whole thing. Now you have all these data and turned into an information and actionable insights. The next step is, with these insights, reduce the complexity, simplify the complexity. That should be your next step, right? So we can simplify the complexity from the test bucket point of view, and feed the data to the test, the parent orchestrator, so they can orchestrate it better, right? So you have to automate and orchestrate with all these data that you have, and build the intelligence in the network, build the higher IQ networks. That's all it boils down to. By doing this, what you would achieve is closed loop environment, which is what a lot of early speakers spoke about, right? So you have all these different data, you do an analytics, and then you have the final feed, and you give it to the orchestration, with all those intelligence, and use those intelligence to build a network that is closed loop and zero-touch networks. That's the bottom line, right? So that kind of brings to the end of my presentation, and I'm sure that most of you know, and some of you who doesn't know about EXFO, a little bit about EXFO. We have more than 1,600 employees, 30 plus years of industry experience. We have partnership with a lot of different ecosystems. We participate in a lot of proof of concepts, and we have been working very closely with different initiatives, standard bodies, and so on. And I can say that we have a booth 54 and 55. Please come and visit us to understand the insights that we have learned over the period of time. And I would like to conclude this presentation by saying that we have you in our mind to build a smarter network, high IQ network, not insights, but insight. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you.